this occasion. We're now recording, and we're gathered here today to highlight the Texas High School Coaches Association's new partnership with Eccker Sports. So what does this all mean? Well, the goal of this partnership is to better educate high school athletes, their families, coaches, about the ever-changing landscape of NIL, that's name, image, and likeness at the college level, and also what it could mean for all of you at the high school level. Of course, I'll be moderating today's roundtable, and just a couple notes before we begin with these gentlemen here and you guys via Zoom. If you could all mute yourselves for all of you joining virtually, that would be very helpful. We will have a Q&A session a little bit later where you can raise your hand, use the raise hand function, and then unmute yourself to ask a question, but that will be later. Also, this roundtable, as you heard there, is being recorded and can and will be shared with all of you after the conclusion. Now, before I introduce these gentlemen here with me today, let's dive into NIL a little bit. Over the past year, as many of you know, it has exploded at a very fast rate in college athletics. It's been really one of the most disruptive concepts in all of sport over the past 4 or 5 decades. We've seen this play out recently between some big name head football coaches just last week. And hard to believe, but there are no set rules from state to state. And that lack of governance has really created a lot of chaos. And there's a trickle down effect here. High school coaches, players, the players' families, they're all trying to figure out, they're trying to navigate this new road with limited resources and not a lot of education. So currently the state of Texas does not allow high school athletes to profit from NIL. But that's not stopping players, parents, coaches from reaching out for answers. And that's why we're here today. The Texas High School Coaches Association is really being proactive here with Eccker Sports in this partnership. They want to provide the educational tools, the knowledge, the resources to help hundreds of thousands of high school student athletes across the state. Now, important note, this partnership does not mean the Texas High School Coaches Association or Eccker Sports is promoting or endorsing NIL. The goal is simple: provide education on the matter. So with that in mind, let's introduce today's panel. Joining me to my far right, Joe Martin, Texas High School Coaches Athletic Association Executive Director. Tim Prokop, the co-founder and chief commercial officer of Eccker Sports. To my left here, Glenn West, Texas High School Coaches Association Assistant Executive Director. And to my far left, Mark Soto, Converse Judson head football coach. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me here in person today. As for those coaches joining via Zoom, well, before we get to the coaches, there is Randy Eccker joining via Zoom, co-founder of Eccker Sports. Thank you, Randy. The head coach is joining us here via Zoom, John Kay, Houston North Shore head football coach. John, can you say hi via Zoom for us?
Yeah, good morning. Appreciate you having me here.
Thanks, John. And I guess we should let Randy say hi too, since he's via Zoom. Randy, can you say hi as well?
Hi, everybody. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Randy. Kenny Harrison, Summer Creek head football coach. Kenny, how are you?
Good morning. Glad to be here as well.
And then Lee Wigginton, Texas High School Coaches Association president-elect and new Allen head football coach. Hey there, Lee.
Good morning. Thank you guys for putting this together and having us on.
Thanks to all of you joining via Zoom, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining here in person. I will now turn it over to Tim Prokop and Joe Martin. Joe?
Thanks, Tyler. Lee, this is a great place to introduce you as the new Allen head football coach. Congratulations. The Texas High School Coaches Association was founded by 32 original charter members in 1930, and over the past 92 years, it's transcended into an association of almost 25,000 members that represent both male and female coaches across the state of Texas in all 23 UIL sports. In 2008, our Coaches Association created Coaches Education Foundation, which is a 501c3, and it was created to enhance education for our coaches, whether it was X's and O's or health and safety, legislation, social awareness, and our goodwill programs. Our mission statement is helping coaches to help kids. And when we began discussing a new initiative, when we began vetting a sponsor or vetting legislation, are making a really, really hard decision, we circle back to that mission statement to make sure that we're aligned with that before we move forward. And our partnership with Eccker Sports illustrates perfect alignment with helping coaches to help kids and our straight line recruiting process. We're very proud of our Texas high school coaches for believing in and following the Texas High School Coaches Association straight line recruiting process and thought and theory, as well as our D1 coaches across the state of Texas. All 12 of them have bought in, believe in it, and are actively involved in it. We as an association believe in being proactive and taking a leadership role in this education process on NIL. We know it's going to affect all of us, every coach and every kid in this state, some way or another. And we believe in trying to have an opportunity, creating an opportunity for our coaches to have education. We want our coaches to be educated on a daily basis, have access to daily updates, and be able to deliver that information to help their kids and their parents. We are proud to partner with the Eccker Sports as our comprehensive NIL resource and up-to-date information. Randy and Tim have a real passion for this education and for our mission statement, helping coaches help kids. I'm going to ask Tim to discuss more about our partnership, but we're very, very excited about this day coming and being a part of this. Tim?
Thanks, Joe. We're honored to be here. On behalf of Randy and the whole Eccker Sports team, we're honored to partner with the Texas High School Coaches Association, the biggest coaches association in the world, to help coaches help kids. That's our goal. A year ago, Randy and I began talking about the impact that NIL may have at the high school level. At that time, everything was focused on the college level. And we wanted to make sure that as this trickled down to the high school market, the high school coaches who do really important work had the information that they need to be able to educate the student athletes that they're responsible for and their families. And that's what we're doing. And so we provide a four-pronged approach to doing that. We have a video series of curriculum that's designed to help coaches, administrators, high school students, and their families understand what NIL is, where it comes from, the history behind it, things to be aware of, and things to think about when you're making decisions about what you're going to do moving to college, et cetera. Secondly, we offer a resource hub that provides vetted state-by-state up-to-date information where we're constantly our team wakes up every morning with the sole purpose of understanding what's going on across the country with NIL, and then alerting all of our partners to those very important things. Third is we provide a coach assist tool, which is tools that we can put in the hands of coaches so they can be effective communicators in their communities with PowerPoint presentations, frequently asked questions, one-sheeters, and such. And then finally, a network of professional tax attorneys, legal professionals, financial advisors, and marketing guidance to help people as they begin to embark on this journey, whether they're moving into college with an NIL opportunity or depending on what's happening in their state. So it's our honor to be a trusted partner of the Texas High School Coaches Association. We will wake up every day making sure you guys have the most up-to-date information.
Drew Kopp, co-founder and chief commercial officer of Eccker Sports. Joe Martin, Texas High School Coaches Association executive director. Thank you, gentlemen, and congrats on this partnership. All right, with that, let's now bring in our head coaches first via Zoom. We'll go to Zoom first with our head coaches joining today and let them have a word first on this matter. We'll start with new Allen head football coach and Texas High School Coaches Association president-elect, Lee Wigginton. Lee, just your initial thoughts on the importance of this partnership and learning more about NIL.
Well, I think it's incredible. You know, I applaud, you know, both the leadership of our association, who are unbelievable in everything they do, but you guys in getting this curriculum, this education piece out there. You know, there's just so much unknown about NIL right now. You know, we've heard about it for a little bit of time, but when we do hear about it, we talk bad about it, or we try to brush it under the rug, whatever it is. And we do that because we simply don't know, or I don't know anything about it. I'm so ill-equipped. I can't educate our kids. I can't even talk to our coaching staff and put words together in a sentence. So, you know, just the ability to have something out there that can can help families of our children, to help both our athletes who are in school now, our athletes who've already gone off to college. It's just something to me that it's a no-brainer. There was a need, and again, for our leadership and you guys to come together and say, hey, let's get out here on the front lines of this. It's really, really cool, and going to be huge for coaches in our profession.
Great point there, Lee. Thank you so much. Moving over to John Kay, Houston North Shore head football coach. John, do you echo those sentiments?
Yeah, without question. I think in this day and age, there's so much information available, and equally available is misinformation. So I think as head football coaches, what we're looking for is information that, number one, is accurate, that is vetted, and that is something that we can use as a resource. And number two, especially with the NIL, is something that's up to date. And so, I mean, literally, this has changed probably 3 times since we even got in talks. And so it's one of those situations as head coaches, we got a million moving parts going on, and to have a constant resource of accurate, up-to-date information that we can share with our parents, share with other coaches, share with the student athletes, I think is invaluable.
Thanks, John. Kenny Harrison, Summer Creek head football coach, your thoughts on all this taking place right now?
I'd like to reiterate what both Lee and John said. First, with Joe and Glenn getting ahead of this, our leadership at the THSCA getting ahead of this. There's a lot of information out there, and I think it's very important for our communities and our school district to be able to provide our parents with accurate information as it comes to us. They see a lot of things on the media, and all the attention it's getting, whether it's good or bad. I just think it's very, very, very imperative that we give our parents accurate information in our communities and school districts.
Thanks, guys. We'll now come back in person here with Mark Soto, Converse Judson head football coach. NIL, it's a pretty big deal, isn't it?
It's definitely a big deal. I mean, I know most kids, they have anxiety, and parents have anxiety in recruiting. It's just a tough world out there. When it seems like it would be something that's so cool to be recruited by these big schools, but there's anxiety with that because it's fear of the unknown. They don't know what the next step in life is. And you add this NIL to it, and it makes it very tough for both parents and kids to pick a school that is right for their child, because now you're throwing a lot of money into the factor. And it does make a difference. And for us to have an option where we can find great information, vetted information that's true, and we can sit down with parents and talk with them is huge, because parents trust the coaches. And we have to have the great information for them to make the best decision for their child, and for their child to understand what's about to go down in their next chapter in life. So it's very important for us coaches to have this education, because education is power.
So many great points from so many great head coaches. Thank you so much. We'll now, our caboose, as we call it, round out things here with Glenn West, Texas High School Coaches Association Assistant Executive Director. And Glenn, you've seen a lot of changes through the years, but right now this is the big change, NIL.
It is for sure. And following up with Joe and I really believe in straight line recruiting, which straight line recruiting means that the coach is the person that the kid goes to and actually works with the universities. This just makes total sense that we keep that in that vein, but also that we keep people from extorting our kids, people that would come in and give them mistruths and they would follow. We want to be the trusted person at our schools and in our communities to be able to help our coaches, help our kids, and help the parents.
Glenn, thank you. Thank you, everyone. This has been really a great conversation. Let's keep it going. Let's bring in the media now to ask some questions, and these gentlemen can provide answers. I'm also part of the media, so I think I'll get going with the first question. And Joe, I'll leave this question for you. Really, after this conversation, Tim talked about the 4-pronged approach. What are maybe your 3 biggest takeaways from today's partnership between Texas High School Football Association, Texas High School Athletics, and Eccker Sports?
Well, there is some takeaways for sure, and there's 3 of them. We know that when the 88th legislative session starts in mid to late January in 2023, there's going to be NIL proposals that are going to be there that are going to ask our legislators to align with the NCAA and allow our high school athletes to participate in the same manner as NCAA. And so we are going to stay on top of that. with our lobbyists. The Eccker Group is going to help us stay on top of that, but we have to educate our coaches. And so the three big takeaways for us, really, number one is education, and that's what I'm talking about. Accurate, up-to-date, immediate information. And we're trusting the Eccker Group, sports group, to give that to us once they receive that. Number two is governance. If something does happen, how do we govern this across the state of Texas? And again, we're going to try to be very proactive in determining how we're going to do this. And we're going to partner with the Eccker Group to help us understand that. And number three is visibility. Just being transparent on all NIL processes in the state of Texas and across the country. And if it doesn't come to the high school level, and obviously we're not promoting that, but our kids that are being recruited outside of the state of Texas and even inside the state of Texas, our coaches need to be able to talk to them about proper ways to understand the NIL process during that education. So those are the three things, really: education, governance, and visibility.
And Tim, do you have anything to bounce off that before we get to the media here on what Joe just said?
We've talked to coaches all across the country, both at the college and high school level. What happened last year when the NCAA basically abdicated responsibility for NIL at the college level and said, you guys figure it out, a vacuum of chaos occurred, which culminated even in the conversations you referenced last week, where guys are really upset with each other. And I think what we hear from the high school market across the country is people like in Louisiana are taking proactive steps to actually put in place things that make sense so that the good parts of NIL can be accentuated and not all the bad stuff.
Thank you. Yes, no doubt. Let's bring in the media now. If you have a question, please raise your hand using the raise hand function in Zoom, and I will call on you based on the order in which I see. So let's start with Greg Bailey. Greg, if you want to unmute yourself and ask away.
Well, good morning, and thank you for everybody for doing this. If I could start with our Houston area coaches, Coach K and Coach Harrison, maybe Coach K, start with you. What are the questions maybe that your players ask, and how big of an issue is this navigating all of this for the young people that are involved in both of your programs?
Yeah, I think the biggest question, I think it comes with anything that's new, is I think our kids and parents know what they don't know. So it's a situation now where kids are really trying to find out what's legal and what's illegal and what kind of questions they should be asking on their visits to these schools. And and frankly, the kids are asking us if it's coming to the high school level and what are they able to do right now. And so I think the focus for us right now here in the state of Texas is our kids that are in college or trying to get to college this coming year. But I anticipate some changes in that as well. And like all these coaches have said, we're just trying to stay in front of the curve and make sure we can provide the right information to people that are just thoroughly confused by everything that's going on that they see in the media.
Thanks, John. Real quickly, if you could just remember to please keep your computer phone muted while the coaches or gentlemen here are answering questions, that would be great. Thank you. Greg, go ahead again.
Yeah, for Coach Harrison, if I could follow up on what Coach K is talking about, the idea that this would come to the high school level in the state of Texas, what concerns do you have with that? How important is staying on top of this as we go forward?
It's very important. Like Soto said earlier, it's a not know that has parents afraid. If we can get accurate information and educate our parents, it will be huge. I think one of the main questions kids would like to know is if they go to college or when they get to college and sign an NIL deal, how does that affect Pell Grants and things of that nature? How does that affect them? So it's a lot of information that kids will be looking forward to getting before going to college, as well as parents. And for us to be able to give the parents on a high school level this information is very important, because parents have a tendency on this level to trust the coaches and go to the coaches for all accurate information.
Greg, did you want to ask any other Houston area coach, or is that it?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. We'll move on to Joshua. Joshua, go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. This is for Joe Martin, Texas High School Coach Association. A lot of the coaches have said that, misinformation is their biggest thing that they're worried about. Was that the kind of driving factor that hopefully when kids had questions, they would go to their head coach and they would have the tools instead of them going to Twitter or Facebook or talking to street agents or anybody like that, that's kind of more of a controlled where the information's coming from.
Joshua, that is exactly right. I mean, we're in a process of trying to keep our coaches on the front porch of the recruiting process through the straight line recruiting that we've mentioned, and to find Glenn and I were looking for, as soon as we heard anything about NIL, probably 2 years ago, we started looking for someone that could help educate us and then our coaches. And the Eccker Sports Group is the group, and they're going to be able to provide accurate information and current information, and our coaches are going to be up to date immediately. And that's our whole mission. It's helping our coaches help kids.
Thank you, Joshua. Joe, thank you there. Moving on to our next question from 020438. If you could just please introduce yourself. There's no name popping.
Yeah, sorry about that. This is Greg Riddle at the Dallas Morning News. I don't know why it's showing up like that. This question is for Joe Martin. Does the Texas High School Coaches Association have any kind of stance on NIL right now? Do they think it should have a place in Texas high school athletics?
We are not promoting NIL in high school athletics at this point. We will follow legislation as it starts being proposed and laid out in January. This is not what we're after. What we are wanting to do, Greg, is we're wanting to make sure we have as much education to our coaches so they can provide that to their kids. NIL changes daily, and that's what Tim and Randy's group are helping us understand what's going to happen. We will follow the legislation starting in January and determine where we think that fits the state of Texas and what is best. But we don't know really what's going to come out and how that's going to be presented. But we are not promoting NIL at the high school level at this point.
Thank you.
It's a great question. Moving on to our next raised hand, Tommy Magelson. Go ahead, Tommy.
Thanks. This is for Tim and I guess possibly Randy as well. You mentioned, every day waking up and getting your information. So where are you guys going to be getting your information about NIL? What resources are you taking advantage of?
Great. Yeah, thanks. Okay, great question. Randy, I'll ask you to weigh in on that. But Randy and I have been in the sports market for the last 35 years, selling different technologies and be involved with college athletics across the board, high school athletics. And so we have a large network of relationships with people in the NCAA, all the way through the state athletic, high school athletic associations, et cetera. So primarily we start there, and then we're constantly reviewing any story or any information that comes across. We have a team of researchers that are doing that. And then as information develops, we then bounce that off all of the people that we know within the industry that have a viewpoint that's important to understand, so that we can then provide good summaries and good information. Randy, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, very good. And I just did want to add how honored I am to be here, and how honored Tim and I are that the Texas High School Coaches Association selected us to do all the work that Joe and Glenn have been referencing, and just we've had a great relationship and really appreciate the opportunity. The one thing too, in addition to the things that Tim said, the Resource Hub and Coach Assist is not someplace where people go, right? It's that certainly they can go and they can have access to all of the information that Tim referenced a minute ago, but also we'll be pushing this out to the folks who are part of our stakeholder groups, right? The people that have licensed the platform, whether it's the coaches through the through their school, or the families that have that the coaches have reached out to and have licensed our platforms. So it's not just curating information from the personal contacts we've spent over 30 years developing, but it's also getting it from all the other sources that anybody can get, but it's curating it into a location where people can have organized and efficient access to that information. And then we'll also be curating opportunities to push that out to the stakeholder groups in ways that are relevant to them specifically. So there's nobody else in the country doing this. Not only is there nobody else curating all of the information in the same way that we are, but most importantly, organizing it in a way specifically for the high school market and the various stakeholders, as Tim referenced earlier, the coaches, the administrators, the families, and the student athletes. And we're very proud of the work that we've done and the team that we have, and we're going to continue to remain committed to making sure that we're helping coaches to help those kids to be successful.
Thank you, Randy. Good question again. Have another hand raised here. M. Berm 261, if you could just please introduce yourself again. Thank you.
Yeah, my computer is doing something weird. It's Mark Berman from Fox in Houston. John and Kenny, questions for both of you guys. What concerns do y'all have? Maybe John first and Kenny. What concerns do y'all have down the road if this becomes a reality? How disruptive this can be within your programs, is the NIL, if it becomes kind of a free-for-all?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things right now. I'm still gathering information, which is why a resource like this is so important to us, just to kind of find out. I've had talks with other high school coaches from across the country, be it in California, Louisiana, some places that are dealing with this right now. And I think, again, I can't look into the future, but what I do know is I want to stay in front of the curve on the information that's coming out here. And, we'll deal with it one day at a time, and hopefully in a little bit more efficient and organized manner than we saw from our college counterparts. So, it's so new that we're just trying to make sure we've got the right information to be able to make those decisions when the time comes, if and when.
Kenny?
Yes, staying ahead of the curve is very important. I know it's something that we have to deal with in the very near future. So I think it's important that we're educated on this, so we're ahead of the curve. So when it presents itself, we're prepared to at least deal with it and take it head on.
Thank you, guys. There are 3 hands still raised. Everyone who has already asked a question, are there any more questions to be asked via Zoom? Tommy and Greg, you guys still have questions, or just left the hands raised?
Hey, this is Tommy. I do have a couple other questions, if that's okay. First, are you guys, this is for Tim again, apologies. Are you guys partner with any other organizations across the nation that certainly not as large as the one in Texas here, but any other statewide coaching organizations?
Yes, thanks, Tommy, for the question. We're working with the Louisiana High School Athletic Association. So in Louisiana, they interpreted their NIL, their bylaws to allow student athletes to actually participate in name, image, and likeness at the high school level. And as part of that, they've mandated that every principal and athletic director across the state of Louisiana take the Eccker Sports NIL playbook program to become educated. So we're working with them very closely on that. We're working with the Alabama Football Coaches Association, and we're working with the Tennessee Football Coaches Association in Alabama and Tennessee. So currently those 4 states are where our focus is, and we are having conversations with leadership in other states as well.
Thank you. And to follow up on that, what's the cost associated with this? If I'm a member, if my school is a member of Texas High School Coaches Association, do I just get this? I noticed at the bottom of a press release it mentioned registering. So is it any school can get it as long as they have a coach who's part of the program, or how does that work?
So what the coaches asked us to do is to allow the coaches to control this information from the standpoint of understanding it so that they could properly represent it to the families and coaches. So we offer an annual license for each high school that if they sign up for it, then that gives access to every coach and administrator at the high school for the program. And then they can also offer at a significant discount availability of the program to all of the families. And that's at a cost of like $25 a year for a family to have access to this as well, because the coach and the booster club invested in the actual license for the high school.
And so just to clarify, what is the cost for each school to register each year? And then also, you mentioned families. So coaches cannot provide this to families. They would have to essentially subscribe on their own to get access to everything that the coaches are getting.
Correct. Yeah. So the annual license for a school is $1,500 a year, $1,500 a year, and then for the families, $25 a family.
Thank you very much.
It's Greg at ABC in Houston. Could I follow up with one more?
Go for it.
Joe, this question is for you. I'm sorry you cut out a little bit, maybe on my end here. Just could you walk me through? You mentioned, I believe, legislation that you feel like will be discussed at the state level. Do you anticipate that in January? And what are the details you know there?
We don't know too many details. We have two different sets of lobbyists that have made us aware of proposals that will be rolled out in the legislative session. There's a concern that one of them will be that high school athletes are allowed to participate in an NIL the same way that NCAA allows collegiate athletes to do that. Whether or not that comes to fruition or not, we don't know for sure, but that is being discussed. There's a couple of other NIL bills that have been discussed. Obviously, the session doesn't start until January, but we feel like this will be a heavy topic, and we're going to keep an eye on it and be as involved in it as we can be.
Thanks for that question. I want to bring back in Mark Soto for a second here. And Mark, as a head coach, this adds another meal to your plate, basically. So how important is this partnership, this education on your end to streamline and educate and help your players and the families as much as possible?
You know, I'm writing down notes here, and I couldn't imagine. I just heard that in Louisiana they already are talking about it or have it instilled in that legislation. If it comes down here in Texas, I mean, our coaches, we have a lot on our plate already, and just as the recruiters have come through our office, and we've got 2 Power 5 kids right now that are getting recruited, and I asked them what's the problems you're having on your team with NIL. And all of them that come through there, or the great majority of them, talk about how you've got a kid that may be there and he's an offensive lineman that's been there for 3 years contributing to the team as a starter. And you've got a freshman coming in that's making NIL money and they're not. So you're dealing with those dynamics on the team. And I'm just sitting here thinking about a high school kid that's really not ready to handle the amount of money that may be coming through their pocketbook. And just trying to figure that out as a coach is hard enough as it is. And then also being able to direct the family in a direction where they can get some help when it comes to having to come up with an agent where they're not dealing with street agents that are all over the place, just feeding on these kids, trying to take advantage of their talents. And I think that's the biggest issue is how can we get these kids and these families aligned with great information and then get them with great people to help them out.
All great points. I mean, that you hear almost that chaos that you were talking about, Tim, earlier that has ensued from this NIL and all the additional aspects of how to handle things from your end. That's why this partnership is so important.
Yeah, well, that and we care. You know, we Randy and I and the rest of the Eccker Sports team, you know, we're coaches. You know, Randy coached for many years. I did as well. We've been involved with selling technologies that help coaches. Over the last 30 years, our kids have all played and have had the benefit of being around high school coaches. Both Randy and my dad were coaches, you know, so we have a great affinity towards high school coaches and what they do and the impact that they make, not only in athletics, but in the formation of leaders that are, you know, that are growing. And so, you know, for us to be able to be a part of this and work with this organization, which is, you know, is fantastic in the way they try to help and the way we do things in Texas. You know, we're just really honored to be here.
And I see one more hand raised now, looking at the Zoom board. Ashley Moore, go ahead and ask a question.
Hey, Tyler, this is Ashley Moore, CBS 19 and Tyler. I had a question for Coach Soto. He was talking about recruiting and having Power 5 athletes. I mean, my question is, what is your protocol? Because I know donors can also participate in NIL. What is your protocol when like donors or, you know, sponsorships are coming for your kids? Are you like, is there somebody with compliance that you have to talk to? Like, what is your protocol?
In the high school level, we're not dealing with that yet in Texas. I know it's coming. Our kids, honestly, have not asked one question about NIL, and I think it's because they're afraid. I think they're just not sure what they can ask and what they can't ask. I'm sure they've talked about it with their recruiters from colleges, but they haven't come to my desk and asked me, nor have the parents. The one thing that I do want to get across, though, is, you know, these are impressionable young men, and I'm hoping and I'm praying that their self-worth is not in the NIL, and it's more in the education that they're about to get.
Thanks for that question, Ashley. We're going to turn things over back to Joe Martin. Joe, any final thoughts on this partnership here today?
Well, very, very excited to be able to bring it today and announce this today, and excited to be working with such a special group at Eccker Sports, and Randy and Tim, and what they're going to bring to our state and to our coaches. One of the things that is so important to us, whether NIL is ever allowed at the high school level for kids, athletes in the state of Texas, they're still going to be recruited. And our coaches need to be able to have that conversation with that recruitable kid, whether it's a D2 kid or a D1 kid or a Power 5 kid. And if one of our athletes walks in and asks a coach, what is NIL? And our coaches can't tell them, they're going to find the answer somewhere. And we want our coaches to be on the front porch of the recruiting process. We want them handling those questions and that information. And if they can't answer that, they're going to go find a third party. They're going to find another coach. They're going to find another association that can answer those questions for them. And so this is our proactive movement to try to eliminate that and support our coaches and give them as much education as we possibly can give them. We're excited about this. This is a whole new era, and it's going to continue to evolve, and we know that. And so I'm really proud to be partnering with this group.
Joe, thanks. We really are excited. And our ultimate listener here today, Glenn West, we want to give you the floor last here to say any final thoughts.
Well, we don't know what the future is going to bring. That's for sure. And Joe said that earlier. There is legislation. It may or may not pass this session. It may or may not pass the next session that's in high school. But we currently know that we must have answers for our kids. We must be able to guide them and make sure that they make the right decisions. And we just appreciate our coaches being open to wanting to be that. We just want to say thank you to you coaches for what you do on a day-to-day basis. And again, stepping up, getting in the gap, and trying to help our young people out.
Great way to wrap things up. The Texas High School Coaches Association Eccker Sports partnership here today. Thank you to the media for joining virtually on Zoom. And I'd like to just thank everyone who joined us in person and all the coaches on Zoom as well. Randy Eccker, Glenn West, Joe Martin, Tim Prukop, Mark Soto, John Kay, Kenny Harrison, and Lee Wigginton. Thank you guys so much for being a part of this awesome and important conversation and this brand new partnership to help educate high school athletes, the families, the coaches. I'm KVU Sports Tyler Feldman. If you want more information, there will be this Zoom that gets sent out. There will be a press release that gets sent out. And if you want to contact Eccker Sports for more information, the email is info@eckersports.com. But that'll do it. Thanks for joining. Enjoy the rest of your week. Stay cool and have a great rest of your day.